Hey, what's up? I'm Guy, and that's John.
That's me, yep. This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe. We want you to like the video, leave a comment. Also, we got a podcast down below in the description.
Go click on it. All right.
Do it.
Colts got Carson Wentz. After weeks of speculating, could he be a 49er? What would the cost be? The cost was a third and a conditional second. We've talked about it. So when you saw that deal, the question is, from a Niners perspective, should they have been in on Carson Wentz at that price?
They had I would say, a unique insider that has joined that was on their staff 2 years ago, that left for the Eagles last year and came back to the Niners this year as their quarterback coach. And Rich Scangalaganoya, his name's a hard one to say. Did work at UC Davis, where we grew up. But I don't think they were interested at all. My loose intel would be that they were never serious players. And I think when everything we've talked about with Carson, with the character stuff, which, again, it was worth the risk to me just because there are only so many guys with this much talent coming out in any draft. Like I saw Greg Cosell was talking to Coward the other day and was like, Justin Herbert is way more physically gifted than Trevor Lawrence. And I'm just thinking it's a polarizing statement just because those two names, but 1,000%. That's a fact.
It's not about how good is he. It's just physical gifts, arm strength, athleticism.
And I think, to me, the question is, like, who's more physically gifted, Carson Wentz or Justin Herbert? And you might lean Carson, right? I'm just talking physical strength, arm strength. If anything, they're equals. They're both greater than Trevor. So it's like, well, we saw Kyle this year talking about the attributes and the things you need and what it takes to win the league. He had to think about it, but once you get this information of the guy that was just there at the low point, I mean, probably has all the sweet stories that I just – listen, Kyle might be more open-minded now with the character stuff when it comes to just any player, let alone his quarterback. And when I say character stuff, I don't mean like getting arrested. I just mean, are you a junkie like Peyton Manning, or are you just kind of like Roethlisberger, right? I think he could live with the Roethlisberger in his prime, but – you know, I just would imagine he had inside information and they weren't that interested, even for a price that I think when you look at it on the surface, like a third-round pick for your starting quarterback isn't that much.
Yeah, and it becomes a first. Let's go into an alternate universe. If the 49ers had just done this deal, and this conversation was about reacting to the 49ers having just done this deal, you know, we have to separate a little bit our reactions, because on one hand, you and I would love it without any caveats. We would love it. It would be interesting. It would be risky. It would be great reward, potential awful fallout. You're bringing in a really expensive player without a great track record of leadership to a locker room that, as Kyle Juszczyk told us on our podcast, and you might have watched it on YouTube, is a really high level, unique locker room. It would not be the type of personality you would think, at least that Kyle Shanahan would want in a quarterback. There'd be a lot of things that would be red flags. And it would feel like the 49ers were taking a risk even bigger than their position would suggest that they should. Because, the Colts didn't have a quarterback other than Jacob Eason, who was their fourth-round pick. And even they said after the season they didn't really know what they had in him, even though he'd been on the team. The 49ers do have a quarterback. That quarterback is cheaper than Carson Wentz. We know what the cap is. It's 180, and the Niners have a lot of expenses. They got a lot of things they got to figure out. They don't have cornerback. Basically, their top four corners they've got a lot to do. They got a left tackle. So it would.
People talk about their roster being a little more defined than it is, I think.
Yeah, because there's like three. You're like, oh, well, you got Kittle, you got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got Bosa, you got.
You're like, well, we don't have any
DBs.
We don't have a left tackle. Our running back situation's a little up in the air.
Yeah, it's not a throwing league. What's the problem? Who needs DBs? Yeah.
So, our best defensive player is coming back off a major knee injury.
It would have felt in that way like exciting. I think it would have been riskier for the 49ers to do this than even for the Colts to do it, given everything we just said. Like the Colts have built a solid culture.
I might change the word exciting to eye-opening, because I do think there would be a lot of people that would be like, what the fuck? I don't know if it's a universal excitement.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, exciting.
Because even for me, like, I'd have some apprehension.
Well, for sure. This could get weird. Saying is there would be one part of you would just be pure excitement, like this is great content for us. right?
Oh yeah.
Like from that's what I'm saying. So there's that, and then there's it would definitely have been a departure from like what we think the 49ers have established as their organizational personality under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Like everything they've talked about and built, great football character is what John Lynch has talked about since he got the job, right? When he says great character, when people say in football character, yeah, they want good guys, but they're really talking about football character. And I think Carson, it's weird, right? Because there are things about him that you go, he's a tough SOB. But then there are other things where you go, well, he doesn't. I've said it multiple times. I think it's the best way I can think to say it. There is not a sense that he thrives in competition, not against the other team, but a quarterback competition. Like when he's got to win a job, he doesn't think like, whatever, I'm better than that guy, I'll go take his job. It doesn't feel that way. Now
it is weird though. A lot of guys that get drafted second overall that get that much money.
It's true.
You know, that's where I think some people push back.
Yep.
The Eagles put him in this weird situation with Jalen Hurts this year. Before, there was never a true competition with Foles, but there was the elephant in the room. I think the biggest issue with the guy is, I don't think he's comfortable in those situations. And you could argue a lot of guys necessarily aren't, but they just outplay it and figure it out. And we've seen like Alex Smith, who, of course, Aaron Rodgers didn't, balled with Jordan Love. Like he's a baller. Alex Smith, though, they took Patrick Mahomes and like had his best season ever. I think there are questions like, can this guy be coached? Can this guy be pushed? Is this guy a diva? Is this guy
needs to push and coach?
Because for a guy from the Midwest, North Dakota, just tough. I would imagine if you walked into North Dakota football offices, that every single person listening, maybe there's a couple that have like seen it or have a friend that has been there. Most people know nothing about it. It is the Alabama of 1AA. I bet if you walked in, you'd be blown away by just the pelts on the wall of All-Americans, of people winning the Butt Buchanan Award and the whatever the awards are in the 1AA. I used to know them all when I was at Cal Poly. Like they win them all. They send a ton of guys to the pros every year. And you'd walk in, you're like, this thing's a football factory where tough guys come from, because that's a tough program. And it's weird. Like, I think he's kind of mentally weak. Like, that's the knock on him right now. It felt like the moment everything got weird when Jalen started, his camp started leaking trades and fuck Doug and I want out. And it's like, what are you guys doing? It felt very NBA player-like.
Yeah.
He feels like an NBA player.
Yeah.
In when I'd say most quarterbacks are just pretty, like, what's the drama that ever followed guys like Rivers, Breeze, even Eli, besides just bad or good play, right? Manning, Brady, they just fucking show up and play. You don't ever think about them really. And Carson became kind of like this weird anchor. Like you had to worry about his personality and the person. It's like, God damn, bro. It's just natural on a team. I'm going to have to worry about a couple DBs, and I got a wide receiver that's pissed, and I got my right tackle thinks he should pay like a left. I don't worry about you. That's why I pay you all this money. Just figure it out. And he's like constantly needs to have his back rubbed. And that to me, when I think Kyle Shanahan is a no-fly zone. Like he ain't worrying about the quarterback. I think that's why Jimmy's driving him nuts.
Well, and I think it's why the Colts probably was easier for them to take that risk, because you can say, okay, Frank, if anybody can get to him, it's you. Right, you've got some experience. Can you get through to him? You feel maybe for them it's a little less of a risk because of that.
But I'd even be like, hey, Frank, do you want to do this?
Well, yeah,
right?
Absolutely. But even Frank could have some confidence that, yes, I can get through to him. I think a lot of quarterback value relies – it's like buying a lottery ticket. It kind of relies on the FOMO. Like, what if this was the one where I could have won $300 million, right? The fear of missing out. I think it's easy. Like I could say right now, and this would be the way you would think, I think, if you wanted to take this swing is, what are the odds that we look back in 3 years and the 49ers don't have a franchise quarterback, and trading a 3 and a 1 for Carson Wentz would have turned out to be a pretty good deal, right? And if you think like that, you go, I mean, you just don't get this many opportunities. But the fact is that traded quarterbacks, by and large, are not Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Right? Guys who are in this particular position, I should say. I should go back and look at the number of quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls after being traded.
But I think a lot of quarterbacks that get traded for 2 2s, a 1 and a 2, 2 3, the Alex, the Schaubs, Stafford's the high end of that. I'm not talking about draft day trades. I'm talking about quarterbacks that get traded, right? And I'm just thinking over the last like decade. Once upon a time, I think Favre was traded for like 2 seconds. It might have been a 1. I can't remember. It was like 93. But like a guy that's already in the league that's traded that you think's legit. For the most part, those guys are never Brady or Manning. But like Matt Schaub for a 5-year span was worth every bit of they gave him up for, right? You think Andy regrets trading those 2 2s for Alex Smith? Fuck no. I'm with you. I think more than likely this guy's probably at minimum on the team for like a half decade, and that means they're probably having some success. And if that's the case, like if they just go to the playoffs 3 out of the next 4 years and he's their starting quarterback, they paid 60 cents on the dollar, regardless of what they're paying him.
Yeah, all the risk that we spent 2 weeks talking about will feel like a joke.
And the only way it won't look like the Niners screwed up is if they feel confident they have like a legit playoff starting quarterback, whoever that is, whether they draft the guy, whether it's still Jimmy, they better have a playoff starting quarterback because that's the way it's going to the cookie's going to crumble if this goes well.
But we do have to talk about his money, right, as it relates to them, as we were talking about earlier with their roster. Like part of it, they might think he's got a good chance to be a good quarterback, but they might also think, but if we take on that salary, how are we supposed to compete when we got to build a team around him? Like, we're not setting him up for success if we do that.
They'd have to cut guys and move guys around. It was easier for the Colts who have the space.
They've got an offensive line already built.
But it is unofficial right now, so like just because you don't have the space, you could make the trade and then figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm just saying, if in 2 years he looks really good, part of the credit for that will be for the Colts, right? We can't – I think what we'll do is we'll look back and go, oh, this is what was going to happen. Well, maybe not. Maybe Frank Reich is the only one that can bring it
up.
Well,
if the Niners had just done this, here's what I'd be saying. I bet they franchise tag and trade Trent Williams. I bet they draft a tackle in the top 15. You just start doing the
guarantees that they draft a tackle. Yeah.
You would just start bang, bang, boom. And you just pivot. And that's the thing with the NFL. I'd say that's definitely different than like the other salary cap basketball. You're kind of stuck once you get to a certain spot. In the NFL, there's so much wiggle room because of the non-guaranteed salaries and how fast that you can just, we're 70 million over, and then 3 days later we cut 7 guys, and now we're 10 million under.
Yeah,
and that constantly happens.
You'd be saying, what will Bill give them for Garoppolo? That's the other thing we'd be saying. Will he give them a third?
Yeah, exactly. And then would you use that third with your 12th pick to move up to get? It's like, damn, are they drafting 5th, and now they're getting Penei Sewell? All of a sudden you just can start doing the math, right? Because that would have been a conversation. Hey. Could we do all these things?
Now I'm having FOMO, see?
Yeah.